Here is by far the biggest mistake that athletes make with their conditioning. It is a combination of both too general and also too random to actually cause any gains. But here is the simple fix. Condition based on speed. The issue is athletes blur the line between either playing the sport itself or training for specific qualities and gains. But conditioning is its own thing. So if you are pursuing better repeat sprintability, or you want to build a better aerobic capacity, simply playing more of your sport or just running or conditioning just to condition will not cut it. In this video, I'll walk you through a speed-based framework for better conditioning, and the value of a framework, one like this, is that it actually helps you organize and make better decisions for your conditioning to get better results. And within this, there are three main conditioning intensity zones: high intensity, medium intensity, and low intensity. And then we will wrap it all up by showing how these intensity zones fit into an actual program. Here's the core principle that this is all built on. Simply put, the faster the movement, the more fatigue it causes. And in sports, stress is stress, no matter what it is or where it comes from. So when putting conditioning into your training program, if you want it to actually serve a purpose, actually cause gains, build qualities like repeat sprintability or building aerobic capacity, but also not interfere with the rest of the training itself or actually getting better at sport itself, all stress needs to be aligned and all stress needs to be applied intentionally. This chart right here, this simple chart, is an absolute game changer, something I talk about way too much, and I have referenced a bunch in my coaching career so far. And this is Charlie Francis's percent-based speed thresholds. So, conditioning is not speed work, and speed work is not conditioning. Don't mix the two up. But when developing a speed-based conditioning protocol and mindset, we can learn from and apply speed training principles. So there are three main intensity zones. First, high intensity. All-out sprinting, super fast, fast enough to cause gains, and consequently develops a lot of fatigue and requires a lot of recovery. Second, medium intensity. This is that awkward middle ground where it is fast enough to cause fatigue, but not fast enough to actually cause speed gains. And last is low intensity. Think active recovery. Enough to get the blood pumping, to drive blood and nutrients to the muscles, but not fast enough to actually cause any fatigue. So each three serve their own individual purpose and consequently need to be used intentionally and have a rhyme and a reason. Let's start with the highest output and the most fatiguing, and that is high intensity conditioning. The fancy technical term here is called repeat sprintability, or basically just the athlete's ability to hit max or near max speeds over and over and over again with minimal rest. And by far my favorite conditioning for this is Derek Hanson's 10x10 conditioning protocol. And it is exactly what it sounds like. There's 10 reps. Sprint 10 yards, decel for 10, count to 5, sprint again. It's super brutal, but super effective in developing that repeat sprint ability, but also comes with a lot of fatigue. Next, medium intensity, and this is where most athletes go wrong by accidentally spending way too much time in this zone. It's intense, it's hard, feels like you got a good, challenging workout, but you get a lot of fatigue for not a lot of benefit by driving gains in the things that we want from conditioning. And because it is so similar to sport itself, it serves one purpose, and that is to help you play your sport more and do it over and over and over again. So when pursuing a medium intensity conditioning session, the technical term, if you want to sound fancy, is called constraint-based conditioning, or basically a constraint, a variable about the game or sport itself, just change one or two to make it harder. And some examples would be for basketball, playing full court, play 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 instead of the full 5-on-5. If you're playing hockey, just have longer shifts, shorter rest. And if you're playing soccer, just don't have any stoppage time. It helps, it's specific, but it comes with a lot of fatigue with not a lot of speed gains. Last, and probably the most underappreciated zone for conditioning, is low intensity. And athletes can fall into issues here because they fall into the, well, if it doesn't suck, then it wasn't worth it, or I need to hurt in order to earn it kind of trap. So when they go into these low intensity conditioning days where the goal is active recovery, they accidentally turn it into medium intensity by going just a little bit too hard, a little bit too long, and trying to pursue that kind of sucky feeling again to kind of earn it. But low intensity conditioning is super, super important because that is when you develop your aerobic capacity, which is basically just your ability to handle a lot of work without crashing or fatiguing. So an example of this would be tempo runs or striders. And I coach my athletes through this as 70% effort, nice and smooth, nice and effortless. It should get your heart rate up, but shouldn't cause any burn or suck kind of in the rest of your body. So here's how this speed-based conditioning actually shows up in a program on a weekly basis. High intensity, because it is the most fatiguing and requires the most recovery, goes at the end of the week, and you can build athletes up to this over time by simply increasing the percent effort, by adding more volume, and adding in more complexity or harder variations over time. Medium intensity, simply just practice. If you want to sport more and sport better, well then do things more like your sport, aka medium intensity conditioning. And last, low intensity. This makes a lot of sense on your active recovery days when you want to go get a sweat, feel good, but bounce back even more and better for the next day of hard training. In summary, conditioning for athletes is not simply just about doing more and doing hard workouts just for the sake of doing them. Conditioning should be applied to drive specific qualities, whether it be repeat sprintability or building aerobic capacity, and also not interfering with the sport itself, aka managing fatigue. So with this new speed-based intensity mindset, we can be super, super intentional by driving qualities and managing fatigue to keep the main thing to help athletes sport more and sport better.